Good afternoon. Well, this is supposed to have a title and all the rest of that stuff, and this was kind of a spontaneous thought. I think the title I put down was Look at Both Sides Now, and it's kind of from Joni Mitchell's song from years ago. I've looked at life from both sides now. And my specialty is helping people heal their trauma. Now, I don't do the healing. That's your job. What I do for people though is I guide them. So it's kind of like getting out of being trapped out in the wilderness, but at the same time, you're learning the wilderness so as how to not be trapped. I hope you get that. So, looking at both sides, what is both sides? Well, when people talk about healing trauma, I think most people kind of think this is going to be the seventh ring from hell and all the rest of that because of what they went through. And what they went through was the seventh ring of hell, yes. But the healing doesn't have to be anything like that. You can heal without diagnosis. You can heal without um, revisiting any of the stuff you've ever been through, and you don't have to remember it. Pretty cool, huh? Now, what's the both sides? Well, the one side is the healing. The other side is what life can be like on the other side of that. And you know why you don't hear much talk about that? Because too few people are living the other side. What they can say is, instead of a whole week being lost to anxiety per month, I'm only losing 3 days. It took me 30 years to get here, but I got here. Yeah, yeah, that was said to me once. I was just like, so I did a little bit of mental math on the cost of that. And I'm sorry, but that's not thriving at all. If it's taking that long, you're using the wrong tools completely, and that's not thriving. You know what thriving is? Is being in the best financial condition of your life, having the best relationships of your life, um, having the best inner life of your life. What else do I want to say about that? I would say physical side, but part of that will depend on a couple of factors. I'll use myself here. I am in the best shape of my life. I got my kettlebells, my bench back there, and I've got all kinds of other equipment around the house. And I'm a Krav Maga instructor, or at least a retired Krav Maga instructor. So, yeah, I know I'm in fairly good physical shape. I didn't start any of that until I was 60. So, what do you suppose along the way I created? Hmm. Now, I deal with an issue with blood pressure, and that might be congenital. We're still working on that. However, those are issues you can deal with, but if I let it go too long, healing my trauma likely might not change that too much. What it will do, though, is it will help you face what you're going through probably better. Now, I do know someone who really changed their lifestyle, and by cracky, they've been cancer free for quite some time now. And they were in some 4 times they had to go to the hospital for chemo and all the rest of that stuff. Pretty serious stuff, whatever she was dealing with. So, okay, because I asked her once, do you think traumatizing stress had anything to do with that? Ooh, that was a trigger. Because, and it wasn't so much that it sent her backwards. Rather, she turned to me and very gently but fiercely said it had everything to do with my cancer. Once I changed my lifestyle, it went away. Okay. Now, I'm sure there's other people. if after if I'm doing a hard Krav Maga workout and kicking and hitting and doing push-ups and all the rest of that stuff like I need to do to be an advanced instructor, oh, okay. My body is probably going to say something about that. And I have to have a diet that figures into that and meaning not just feeding him with the right nutrition, but I have to eat at a time that fits my training, which wasn't always easy. And I might sometimes get down to the gym and start training, and I used the word gym, but that's not what it was. It was the dojang. So there I am doing my thing, and sometimes my body would start shaking because it was saying, "You're done." And sometimes I would honor that, sometimes not. But what that prevented was a collapse of that system. If I honor what my body is saying to me, then that means my recovery will be better. And so, with the trauma healing that I teach people, that's one of the things that I include. But anyway, the reason you don't hear that is because even the people who are potentially helping you with your trauma, and I say potentially because the tools they're using might be completely inept, some even inappropriate, but they haven't learned themselves. They will never be able to take you farther than they already are. They might live comfortably financially when you're charging 50, 60, 70, or well, no, I think 85 is the national average per hour. New York is can be way more than that. I'm going to presume LA might as well, and that's why there's an issue. Who can afford that? And B, if they're just living on the ease of that, they're not really healing. They're thinking they are, but they are not. You know how you know that? Because you don't hear the genuineness and the authenticity of that lived quality of life being post-trauma. They can't give you the steps of how they attained their financial state that they're in, their financial freedom, I'll call it. They can't tell you how they became an excellent lover. They can make the claim. They can't tell you what they did to become better at being a friend. They can't tell you how they came to this place of having a better emotional state, a better cognitive state. Trauma healing affects these things. So when you're talking about spirituality and what that even means, existential questions, being able to do that without fear, how you express yourself, there's all kinds of aspects to healing trauma that aren't talked about because they aren't being experienced. That's the other side. That doesn't mean you heal your trauma and you come to zero. Zero just means you're one paycheck away from bloop being back here. Thriving means you've gone past the zero, way over to here. You want to use a money line? You're in debt. Now you got nothing. Now you have a net worth that's in the positive. That's what post-traumatic growth and health means. That you're over here in the positive, the growing, expanding positive. So I just wanted to share that with you. When people are talking to you about trauma or other issues, listen for this and then listen for this. We can all talk about bad shit. Methyl ethyl bad shit. Can you talk about the good stuff? Because that's what everybody deserves, that's what everybody wants, and that's where we can all go. Anyway, have yourselves a great weekend. I will talk to you later. Bye.